Monday, August 29, 2005, 7 a.m. The lower Ninth Ward, New Orleans, Louisiana. Hurricane Katrina was ripping apart New Orleans, and 11-year-old Barry Tucker was lost and alone, clinging to an oak tree for dear life. He'd fallen off the roof of his house and had been swept away in the floodwaters. The raging current had tossed and twisted him, almost tearing him to pieces. He would have drowned, but somehow Barry had grabbed hold of the tree. With every bit of strength in his body, he pulled himself out of the water and wrapped his arms and legs around the trunk. Now he was holding on with no idea what to do next. Wind howled around him, rain hammered down, and all Barry could see was water, swirling, foaming, rushing water. The water had washed away the whole neighborhood. Pieces of it floated by in the dirty gray light. Barry saw jagged hunks of wood, shattered glass, a twisted bicycle, and a refrigerator, a stuffed penguin, and a mattress covered with a pink blanket. He tried hard not to imagine what else was in the water or what had happened to all of his neighbors, and his mom, his dad, and his little sister Cleo. What if they fallen into the water too? Wait, what was that sound? Was someone calling his name? Dad, Barry screamed. Mom, Cleo. No, but it was just the wind shrieking. Even the sky was terrified of the storm. Barry was shaken now, tears stung his eyes, and then he heard a new sound. A cracking and groaning above the wind and rain. He stared in shock at what was floating in the water, a house, or what was left of it. One side was torn off. It moved through the flood, slowly turning. Its blown-out windows seemed to stare at Barry. They splintered wood around like teeth in a wide-open mouth, and it was coming right at him.
Okay. Chapter 2, 21 Rodriguez. Sunday, August 28, 2005, 10 a.m. The Tucker's house, the lower Ninth Ward, New Orleans, Louisiana. Barry sat on the steps of his front porch. His best friend Jay huddled next to him. Jay wanted to see the drawing rolled up in Barry's hands. Show me, Jay said, leaning so close Barry could smell egg sandwich on his breath. Barry elbowed him back, laughing. He knew Jay was excited. There goes my voice. Barry elbowed him back, laughing. He knew Jay was excited. They both were. The next day was the deadline for acclaimed comic books create a superhero contest. For the past 3 weeks, Barry and Jay had been working nonstop on their creation. They'd come up with everything together. Their hero's name, his costume, even his secret star, which was the source of his amazing powers. But it had been Barry's job to draw him. He'd stayed up past midnight the last 3 nights, adding his finishing touches. Okay, Barry said, clearing his throat and standing up like an announcer facing an anxious crowd. This is the moment you've been waiting for. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Akivo. He unrolled the paper and watched Jay's eyes get wider behind his scotch-tip glasses. Barry's cheeks heated up. He'd worked hard on the drawing. Of course, he'd never admitted to Jay. But it was almost like Akivo was his brother. A 7-foot-tall brother with bulging muscles, hawk wings, titanium armor, and eyes that could see through walls. Jay rose to his feet. That's amazing, he said in a shocked whisper. The wings look real, and that fire, he pointed to the flames coming out of Akivo's silver boots. Barry had worked for 3 hours on those flames, mixing orange and red and yellow with a bit of blue, until they looked like they would burn your fingers if you touched them. They both stood there for a minute, staring at the drawing. Then Jay started jumping up and down. We're going to win the contest, Jay yelled. We're going to win the contest. Barry started jumping too. He knew the hundreds of people were entering, and not only kids. Some people drew on computers. Others made videos. All Barry had were the colored pencils Mom and Dad had bought him for his last birthday. Still, Barry was a believer. He had gotten that from his mom. And at that time, Barry let himself that he and Jay might win first place. $250 to split in the comic book, starring Akivo that Acclaim would create. Barry and Jay loved comic books. They'd been collecting them since they'd learned to read. We're going to be rich, Jay sang. And famous, said Barry. They were so busy jumping and dancing and hooting, they didn't notice. Abe McKay and his killer dog Cruz, watching from the sidewalk. Abe's laughter got their attention. Abe was a huge guy, almost twice the size of Barry. His booming laugh practically shook the ground. Barry and Jay froze. The hairs on Barry's arms stood up straight. Jay's cocoa skin turned gray. Abe was in middle school, just a year older than Barry and Jay. They used to all be friends, but Abe had changed since his dad had gone away 2 years earlier. Now he and his grandma live alone. The McKay's house used to be one of the nicest in their neighborhood. It was painted bright sky blue. Abe's grandma used to have a yard full of flowers you could smell a block away, but now the garden was dead and the house was gloomy. Abe didn't go to school much anymore, and he'd started hanging around the older boys whose booming motorcycles kept everyone up at night. And then there was this new dog. He looked like a big mug. He had a square head and the tips of his pointy ears flopped over, but Abe said that he was a special breed from Asia, trained by the Chinese army, and that his jaw was strong enough to bite through metal. He's trained to kill, Abe had bragged. On my command, he goes right for the neck. One bite is all it takes. Why'd you stop dancing? Abe asked, now spitting onto the sidewalk. Cruz loves to dance. He bent down to unhook the dog's leash. Go, Abe shouted. Go get him, Cruz.
Chapter 3. Barry turned and put his hands over his face, bracing for the feeling of teeth ripping at his neck. But nothing happened. He peeled open his eyes and saw that Cruz was still on his leash, standing next to Abe, who was laughing his head off. Why did he think it was so funny to scare them? Barry wished he could find the courage to step forward and say, "Get off my property." He'd practiced that in the bathroom mirror, squinting his eyes to get a fierce look. But who was Barry kidding? He was about as fierce as one of Mom's peanut butter cookies. If only Barry was more like his father. Nothing ever got to Rhodey Tucker. And then, as though Barry's thoughts had been sent out as an SOS, the front door opened and Dad appeared on the porch. "Hello there, Abraham," he said with a smile. Abe pulled Cruz closer and lost his usual "what are you looking at" glare. Suddenly, he looked like the old Abe, the pudgy guy in the Saints jersey who tried to show Barry and Jay how to shoot layups. Dad had that effect on people. He could smile at T-Rex, and next thing they'd be making plans to have a burger together. Barry's dad was a little famous in the lower 9. His band, Rhodey Tucker and the Blasters, played in jazz clubs around New Orleans. But Mom said that wasn't why people respected him. "Your father's got sweet music in his heart," Mom always said, "and anyone can hear it." Now Dad looked at Barry. "We're leaving in an hour," he said. You need to pack up. That hurricane's getting nasty. It looks like it might be a direct hit on the city. We're leaving town." Barry stared at Dad. Leaving town for a hurricane? Not the Tuckers. Never before. Every year, a few storms fixed their sights on New Orleans, and they always petered out at the last minute. There hadn't been a bad hurricane in New Orleans in 40 years. Was Dad making this up to get Abe to hustle home? "I'm serious," Dad said, reading Barry's doubtful look. "There's a mandatory evacuation. First time in New Orleans history." "What's that?" Jay asked. "It means if you can leave, you've got to leave," Dad said. "Your mom already called, Mr. J. You're heading up to Birmingham." "What about us?" Barry asked. "Houston," Dad answered with a sorry smile. Barry groaned. He loved Mom's Texas cousins, but all of them, 5 wild little girls, and their grumpy mama, lived in a tiny little house. Barry always went home with a whopper headache and after visiting them. Dad, too. The hurricane must be bad to get Mom and Dad to head to Houston. Barry looked around his neighborhood. The little houses, the scraggly lawns surrounded by chain-link fences, the palm trees and big oaks. He and Jay used to pretend that those big oak trees were ancient creatures rising from the earth's core. There were better neighborhoods in New Orleans, and sometimes Mom and Dad talked about moving to a block where police cars weren't always blaring their sirens, where Mom would be safe walking around after it got dark. But the Tucker family had been on this block in the lower 9 for 70 years. Grandma's had helped his daddy build this house back when folks kept hogs in their backyards. Barry couldn't walk half a block without someone shouting hello from a porch and waving him up for a chat and a glass of iced tea. The lower 9 was home, and that was that. It started to slink away. "They're opening up to the Superdome, Abraham," Dad called after him. "For folks without cars, you should get your grandma over to the stadium as soon as you can." Abe waved and went on his way. Dad opened the door to go inside, and the news playing on the radio echoed out to the porch. "That's right," a man's voice boomed. "This storm is a monster. It's time to leave. Get out now. Get out while you can." "You heard the man," Dad said, starting to close the door behind him. "Time to get moving."